Get ready to travel to Azeroth. Nearly 20 years since its first incarnation, it finally looks like a Warcraft movie is on its way. The Warcraft universe is a rich fantasy setting that revolves around the epic conflict between the opposing forces of the Horde, made up of the undead, goblins, trolls, blood elves, orcs, and others, and the Alliance, made up of the humans, night elves, dwarves, gnomes, and more. A number of years ago, Spider-Man director Sam Raimi signed on to direct a potential Warcraft movie, but since left the project. Now it's being announced that Source Code and Moon director Duncan Jones will helm the project from Legendary Pictures, the company behind films like the upcoming Man of Steel and Pacific Rim. So, John, what do you think about a Warcraft movie moving forward and the choice about Duncan Jones as the director?
I love it, actually. I love it on several levels. Look, I've said for a very, very long time, all comic book movies suck. Or sorry, not comic movies, video game movies. All video game movies suck. They just all do. But I've said there are a few games that have the potential, because of their rich narrative, to be really good, and Warcraft is one of those. I think Warcraft is just such a rich world. There's so much you can do with that world. It's got a huge built-in following, 20 years worth of built-in followings. You've got guys now who play this game with their kids. With their kids, they play this game, because that's just how long this game's been around. And you know, a lot of people will say to me, oh, they don't like the choice of Duncan Jones because he's never done a big, grand film like on this scale. Well, you know what? Neither did Christopher Nolan before he did Batman Begins. I mean, neither did Peter Jackson before he tackled Lord of the Rings. Duncan Jones, if you've seen Moon, if you've seen Source Code, which wasn't as good as Moon, but it's quite solid, Duncan Jones is great at narrative. He knows how to tell a story, and that's the type of guy I want to bring. Look, a lot of people say, oh no, get a fan of the game. You know who was a fan of the game? The guy they hired to direct that Dungeons and Dragons movie. Yeah, he was a big fan. Look how that turned out. I don't want a big fan. I want someone who's a great storyteller, because all the building materials are already there. So I love this, both that they're making it and that it's Duncan Jones. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in the same boat. Like, they have consultants for these movies that can tell him which characters to focus on and things like that. But I'd rather have a guy that, we know has put together some really interesting narratives so far. Moon and Source Code, I agree with you that Source Code isn't quite as strong as, Moon in terms of a lot of different elements of it. But they're both very solid stories, which I think is the key to this, this Warcraft movie, because we know with Legendary behind it, there's going to be big action set pieces and cool stuff like we're seeing in Pacific Rim and, expecting in Man of Steel. So none of that is really an issue. We know that's going to be there. The question is, how do you make people care about these characters, which have been viewed, by people who aren't necessarily fans of the game as sort of a niche, kind of geeky thing? How can you make them relevant in a way that you could make something like Lord of the Rings relevant to a larger group? Duncan Jones has the capability of being able to communicate that better, I think.
And I think one of the really fascinating parts for me is that because Warcraft's been around for 20 years, there's a lot of big storylines in the game. For me personally, I don't know how much you've played the game, Ben, but for me personally, I think if you go with the Lich King storyline, the story of Prince Arthas becoming, getting infused with this spirit, becoming the Lich King and ruling the Scourge and blah, blah, I think that's a fascinating story you can go with. So overall, 2 big thumbs up from us.
Awesome.
Yeah, the Lich King is definitely that would be a direction to go. It's a very focused narrative, so it's it's very direct compared to some of the other stuff. We'll save Mists of Pandaria for another time.
Yeah. Well, it seems like they have a lot of fans. Hopefully they'll be able to get even more fans from this movie.
I agreed, yep.
Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to stop what you're doing and subscribe to our AMC Theaters YouTube channel to keep up to date on all the movie news, editorials, and our AMC Movie Talk Show. Also, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter to hear about all our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.